WCNC Charlotte. This is Flashpoint.
Thanks for joining us here on Flashpoint. I'm Ben Thompson. As we close the book on 2022 and look into the new year, there's a lot of decisions that could shape our world. Everything from how to get to work to how much you're having to fork over at the grocery store. That is why we're looking at two big topics facing Charlotte and North Carolina: transit and our economy. CAT's looking to hire its next CEO in the new year, and now an influential organization laying out their wish list for the next generation of transit leaders here in Charlotte. And a little bit later, we'll take a look at the state of our economy here in Charlotte as recession fears loom. But first, joining us now is Meg Fencil. She's with Sustain Charlotte. It's a group advocating for specifically smart growth here in our city. Meg, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So your group releasing what it's called a wish list of stuff that you all would like to see from Charlotte area transit as we go into the new year. And you start simple. You're talking about more predictable service and better bus stops. Are those things really that important at this point?
Those are the basics, and they are absolutely essential. If we don't make sure that our bus service is fast, frequent, reliable, and walkable, it's going to be really hard for people just to get to and from jobs and other daily destinations. So those are the essentials that we absolutely have to get right. So that's the very top of our wish list.
Another, what I would see as a basic, but I cover these things, so I know, like you know, that it's not a basic, but happy and safe drivers as well.
Yeah, so the drivers really provide the daily service to our passengers who use the bus and the light rail, the special transportation services, and the streetcar. So all across the country, this is certainly not a challenge unique to CATS, but all across the country, transit agencies are facing challenges hiring and retaining transit drivers as well as maintenance staff. And so it's essential that the people who provide our transit service in Charlotte have good pay, that they have schedules that can allow them to take care of themselves and their families, that they have safe working conditions. And just a lot of drivers are feeling fatigued. They work through the hardest days of the pandemic and they need support.
I want to talk about financing in just a second, because I know that's a big part of this, just a practical part of it. But before we get to that, what, or perhaps I should say who, has been the biggest impediment to us having more progress on the transit front?
Well, there are definitely a lot of factors. The biggest factor is it's just expensive to provide transit service and to be able to have 15-minute or more frequent service, which is really the gold standard. If buses aren't coming every 15 minutes, then it's really hard for people to make connections, especially if they have to transfer between routes. So there's not any one single person or entity that is a barrier. It's just that the incremental way that we have been investing in our transit service has not kept up with the pace of our rapidly growing population. And we need new funding sources if we are going to grow and meet those mobility needs of our population. And to be competitive as a city. A lot of people have moved during the pandemic, and many people have moved to Charlotte. People have moved away from Charlotte. So if we want to be competitive as a city, a county, a region, we need to be investing in the transportation choices that we know that workers want to have access to. We also need to make sure that we're taking care of the needs of people who are aging and maybe don't drive a car anymore. And people with disabilities, people who choose not to have a car. And so when we think about the barriers, the main factor is funding, really.
And speaking of that direct source of funding, I mean, specifically, are you directly referring to that 1 cent sales tax, or are you talking about even broader than that?
So this really needs to be a regional conversation. Charlotte and Mecklenburg County don't exist in a vacuum. About half of the people that work in Charlotte are coming from outside of Mecklenburg County. So we need to be thinking regionally, and the Connect Beyond Regional Mobility study really took a look at how we can connect Charlotte and Mecklenburg County to the surrounding counties in our region. So we need to be having that regional conversation, but we also can be moving forward at the county level with that 1 cent for mobility sales tax that would dramatically increase the revenue, not just to build out the public transit system, but also to invest in safe places to ride bicycles, better pedestrian infrastructure. Like, we have tremendous sidewalk needs across the county, safer intersections, greenways, and just improving connectivity.
Let me put you on the spot here. For 20 years, there's been talk about a commuter line up to the northern parts of Mecklenburg County. It seems like right now more talk is happening on the Silver Line, which would go from Gaston County, stretch through past the airport, uptown, go down approximately 74 out towards the Matthews. Which do you think is more important? Which do you think should be getting priority?
So both of those projects can move forward. There would potentially be different funding sources for them, and the Red Line commuter rail up through Mecklenburg County, that is something that residents, not only of Charlotte, but especially those towns in North Mecklenburg, have been waiting for, as you said, for over 20 years. And we are finally seeing some movement. Sustain Charlotte created a petition and directed it to the heads of the North Carolina Railroad and Norfolk Southern, really asking them to work with CATS to come up with a plan to allow the Red Line to run on that line that is owned but not currently used for freight by Norfolk Southern. And recently, the Metropolitan Transit Commission, which is the governing body of CATS, decided to advance the design of the Red Line, which hadn't been updated in a very long time. So that's the next critical stage to make that project eligible for them to then apply for federal funding. So, in terms of timing, these are both really critical projects, and they both deserve priority.
Okay, I got two quick questions, so I want to get them in the last minute. For what do you think Norfolk Southern has a renewed interest? Because in the past, having covered this for years now, they've seemed resistant. Has that changed?
I know that there are conversations that are happening among leaders, and we don't know all the details of those, but the actual vote by the Metropolitan Transit Commission to advance the Red Line design is a very good indicator that there is progress happening, that there is hope. And, the current policy is not to allow commuter rail on freight lines owned by Norfolk Southern, but we have seen some flexibility in other states. And we certainly hope that those conversations continue and that this really critical project can move forward, because the people in North Mecklenburg deserve that mobility option.
Final question to the folks out there who say, you know what, I drive to work, I don't use the bus, I don't use the Blue Line, I don't use the Gold Line either. Why does it matter to them?
So if we think about it, by 2040, so just 17 years from now, we could have double the number of daily vehicle trips, double the number of cars out on our roads if we don't invest in public transit. So even if you never set foot on public transit, it is worth investing in so that our roads aren't congested. And we also, most of us have, family members and friends. We can all think of somebody who doesn't drive a car. So it's really critical for equity that we make sure that people have choices for how to get around. And also just for our economy, we need to be able to connect people to jobs and opportunities and not leave out those people that don't drive.
All right, Meg Fencil. Meg, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
All right, more Flashpoint after this.